I'm Rob Vetter of the IVES Training Group. Today I'm going to take you through the familiarization process that you would use with aerial lift operators around your work site. What we'll do first is walk through all the documents that you'll find in a familiarization packet that you get from IVES, and then I'm going to walk through the actual process itself. There's a lesson plan in there, I'll walk through that. There's a handout for your operators, we'll go through that in detail, so you'll know exactly what to do when you get around operators in your machine. Later in this video we'll bring in an operator and we'll go through the actual process so you can actually see what goes on during the familiarization process. All right, before we get started, let's run through a checklist of the standard gear you'll need when working around any type of machinery, but particularly with the aerial boom lifts. First of all, I've got my familiarization packet right here that I got from IVES, so we'll open that up and get into it in detail a little later. Clipboard and a pen, of course, to write on and with. I've taken the actual equipment manufacturer's manual out of the machine, and of course the ANSI manual responsibilities as well. I'll be going through that later with the operator. And the standard gear, of course, gloves, high-vis vests, and of course with an aerial boom lift, you have to have your harness, right? Your personal fall protection harness with lanyards, and they're good and inspected and ready to go. And of course the most important thing, coffee. We got to have that. All right, let's go through the familiarization packet itself. This is something that you'll get from IVES. I've got an open one here, so there's a number of documents we need to get familiar with. First being this notice to trainer. Okay, you see it lists a few documents that you actually have to go to our site to download. They don't come with the packet, so you got to go to our site and download this stuff. The first item here is the trainer's log. This, you're going to log all the pertinent information that you'll need. The operator's name, dates, equipment, that type of thing, the usual kind of thing. That will stay with you. All right, the next thing here is this sign-in roster. This is something, again, that calls for names and dates and equipment types and that type of thing, but this will stay with the employer, right, or whoever's, you know, paying to have their operators familiarized. Okay, the last thing, or I shouldn't say the last thing, but a very important thing is the lesson plan itself. That's this. All right, this will walk you through step by step the whole process from beginning to end. All right, and then there's a folder inside that contains, well, first of all, a handout, just very, very basic stuff for the operator. You'll walk through this with your operators. I'll walk through this with you in a moment here. And then it's just some general requirements information, the actual familiarization checklist itself. Right? This is what will be the most important thing to show that you went through it and the operator signs it and all that type of thing. This is a FAIR card, familiarization record card. That's something you'll fill out and leave with the operator. Right? And on the back is just some more general information that references some of the things on the checklist inside. Right? But I'll walk you through each thing individually as we go here, and so everything will be clear for you. All right, let's go through the actual lesson plan. Let's go through step by step and explain each item. Some things will need, you know, less explanation than others, but let's start off right at the top. Maximum enrollment 8. Right, so you can bring in 8 to do total. We recommend you don't do any more than that. And this will probably take about an hour and a half. Now, that's to finish the 8, okay? The first of your 8 might be done in half an hour, okay? It might take longer to get through everybody. It will take longer, obviously, but you know, you don't need all 8 people for 90 minutes, all right? The equipment address, of course, this would be this particular unit today, but it could be any number of units that you're dealing with out in the field. Okay, now it says notice there. This aerial lift familiarization program is designed to be delivered by an IVES certified trainer. The purpose of this program is to supplement the existing general knowledge of previously trained and qualified operators with information and instructions specific to the unit they are assigned to operate at the work site. So, familiarization is not general training, right? Basic general training has to have occurred before this. This is really just bringing someone up to speed that already knows how to operate an aerial lift, but how to operate this one, things that are specific to it. All right, so it could take, you know, a very short time. It could take a very long time. This is a pretty basic unit. It wouldn't take long at all with this little electric. But if you were moving from this unit, let's say, to a large, you know, engine-powered machine with, you know, extendable axles and envelope management and, you know, a little more complex, you'd have to spend a little more time with that. Okay, step 1, pre-program preparation. All right, 1.1, the equipment. Locate the equipment. Make sure the manual and the ANSI standards are there. I put them back in the compartment. They are there. We saw them earlier, I showed you. Review the unit-specific manufacturer's operating manual and make note of any items that could be considered unique to the specific unit or otherwise not included in general training. This will help you later in the program. Now, that's something that I do, right? When I get to the site, I go through the manual first and I look for anything that I don't know, right, that isn't included in general training. And if there is something, then of course I'll single that out and make sure the operators know about that. And we'll get to that later when the operator arrives and we're actually going through the process. D says, note the location and function of all safety devices, safety devices / systems specific to the unit being used. All right, this will also help you. So remember, familiarize yourself with the machine before your operators get there. Of course you're going to do that. The last thing you need is to be, trying to familiarize operators and you're not familiar yourself, right? So get yourself, acclimated to the machine and then bring your operators in. And confirm that the required inspections have been completed, so that'll be your annual, your frequent, right? Whatever the case may be. And then perform a pre-use of the equipment, which I've done already, and make sure it's in sound operating condition. And I find doing the pre-use itself just helps me. That's the best thing I can do to familiarize myself. Anything I'm not, familiar with, I'm going to come across during the inspection. So you kind of kill two birds with one stone there. 1.2, site inspection. Decide on an area to deliver the training and perform the site inspection to make sure that the area is safe and will accommodate the training. Of course, you always do that whenever you're involved in, really I do it with any equipment, but it's very, very specific and required with aerial equipment. And this site here, I'm on asphalt here. It's not exactly perfectly smooth and level, but it's really not, there's no significant grades or anything. I've got gates shut. I know I'm good for pedestrians. I've locked the door over there, so no one's going to come walking through. There's no other equipment going to come through. There's no overhead power lines. All the normal things you would look for in a site inspection. I'm just going to stay off the dirt because this is a slab type model, as you can see, the solid wheels. So I'm just going to stay on the asphalt and make sure I don't get into any places I shouldn't be. But there's the checklist there at 1.2B. Right, there's the checklist you can go through, and that's right out of the ANSI standard, so that's official. Okay, over the page 2, 1.3, the operator training manuals. Make sure you have an IVES airlift operator familiarization training packet, which we went through earlier. And the checklist, the familiarization card, and the training guide. Sign-in roster, we talked about earlier, right? We've got that. 1.5, personal protective equipment. Now, I don't have it on right now. I will when I get on the machine. But that mostly would be our fall protection harness. You're going to need that more than anything else. You must have that. The gloves, the high vis, all that's more or less optional. I wear it, but the harness is a must. You've got to have that on. And that's as soon as you're in the platform, right? I hear people say, well, if you're not above 6 feet or 10 feet, you don't need you need it on. This is, the harness is anti-ejection protection, and as soon as you step in that platform, you click that snap hook into the anchor point. It's anytime, I don't care what height you're at. Okay, step 3 would be general introductions. You want to introduce yourself. They may not know who you are, right? What your background is, so you want to do that. Then get them to introduce themselves, and I like to use that or take that opportunity to find out how experienced they are with the machine. If it's someone that's using it, maybe once every couple of weeks or a few months, who knows, they'll be less experienced. But again, it's not such a big deal because since this is not general training but familiarization, they should already know how to operate basically, but it's just good for me to know that. I like to know who has experience and who doesn't. It kind of changes how I deal with them, really. Okay, so it goes on to talk about when introducing the program, explain the process, why they're there. Many people won't understand, like, I thought I was already trained, and they have to be familiarized as well. The training portion takes about a half an hour, so it's not long, very, very basic. But may take longer depending on the type of machine you're involved with and any assessments you have to do. And be absolutely certain, notice that at B3 there, be absolutely certain that they understand that familiarization training alone does not qualify them to operate equipment. So if they have familiarization and nothing else, that's no good. You have to have your general training first, then familiarization. So now at step 3C1, when having the operators introduce themselves, have them describe what they do, their operational experience, and what previous training they have. Remember, they have to have that general training. At this point, it's also important to find out what specific types, makes, and models they have used in the past, so you can direct your efforts toward focusing on items they are unfamiliar with. So you don't want to do a bunch of redundant training, things that they already know, right? You want to cover really what they're not familiar with to make them familiar. Okay, next page, page 3, step 4, aerial lift operator familiarization training guide. Now that's the little handout that's in the packet, the folder here that I pointed out earlier. That's something you'll review with your operators. We'll review that after we get through the lesson plan here. I want to walk through everything here first, and then we'll get to that guide that they're talking about here. Okay, refer to the appropriate ANSI SIA 892 manual responsibilities where applicable. Review the following. Basically, you're going to review the requirements for familiarization and general training. Well, at this point in the lesson plan here, you're only talking about familiarization training. Now, you see the note here for you folks in Canada and particularly Ontario. There are no manual responsibilities drawn from the applicable CSA standards like there are for ANSI standards. You will have to reference the actual standard here if possible. Now, whether you have that handy or not, well, I can't say. But, you know, the requirements are very similar. It's just that ANSI pulls out this very, very specific information, and they put it into what's called the manual responsibilities, and they put it's right in the weather-resistant compartment there, right? But there's unfortunately not a similar document for CSA standards. So, you know, we'll just have to deal with that as you go. Okay, 4.3, regulatory reference, right? So discuss the applicable regulatory references to the ANSI or CSA standards so that you can just show the connection between, hey, look, this is not just something we're doing for fun. It's not just a good idea. It is actually mandatory. It's required, right? The types of training required, general training, familiarization training, of course, which is what we're doing, and as CSA calls it, operator training. Okay, and then on the general training topic, right, just basic information. It's just to give the operators, you know, a good solid grounding as to what they should have, right, that would lead them up to this point where they're getting familiarized, right? In terms of training, that is. And then, of course, at 4.6, familiarization training. Well, actually 4.5 general, 4.6 familiarization. So again, we're just saying, yes, you have to have these things, and that's why we're here. Now, finally, step 5, practical familiarization training. 5.1 says, lead the group to the aerial lift they will be using and walk them through the items listed in section D of the training guide. Remember, that's that little handout that's in here, right? Okay, and this is basic familiarization right here. A starts with the location of the weather-resistant storage compartment and the manufacturer's operating and maintenance manuals, and the ANSI standard of responsibilities. Location and use, and I'm at C now. The location and use of all control functions affecting the movement and actuation of the equipment. And D says the location and function of all safety devices specific to the model and aerial lift being used. All right, and there's a whole list of things there, for example. Now again, if they're already familiar with a bunch of these things on here, then don't waste your time with it. Right? Just go to what is needed. And E says the loading and unloading procedures and the use of tilt-back features will when applicable, manual propelled units only. This is not a manual propelled machine. This is self-propelled. A scissor lift would be self-propelled. Manually propelled would be the type that you generally push around by hand. Right? They're on rollers or wheels, and you have to, you know, roll them to a location, set them up, and away you go. That type of machine requires familiarization too. This applies, but the tilt-back procedure is not that type of thing. That's not something that applies to a boom or a scissor. Okay, so now let's go over the page here. A little breezy out here at the moment. Step 6, knowledge demonstration. So you've walked them through, you know, what you hope will familiarize them with the machine, and you've gone through the actual checklist and pointed out these things. Now you're going to get them to show that they know where they are, and so they're going to do it. So step 6, knowledge demonstration. 6.1, after you are satisfied that all the operators understand the information they have been given and what is expected of them, each operator must then demonstrate their knowledge. Just like a regular training class. Now, there are some who say, well, you know, familiarization is not training, and in some cases that might be true. You know, if you have a very simple machine, like this one is pretty simple. If someone were coming from a big, you know, like a more complicated unit and down to this one, they might be able to do that themselves just by looking at the manual and figure it out. But if they were going the other way, and they've never, you know, worked with extendable axles before or other kind of safety devices that are on the machine, they may not know how to use those things. And even if you point them out, just like you would in regular training, general training, you always train somebody and then you evaluate them. You get them to do it to make sure they can demonstrate competence. Right, so depending on the complexity of the machine you're dealing with, and again, what their past with the machines is, that's going to really affect, you know, this stage of the process. All right, so we're going to assume that our operator, you know, hasn't got that experience, and I'm going to want them to demonstrate that they understand, and that's going to mean putting them through, and now they are going to show me, right, these things. Right, so I'm going to ask the operator. Locate the weather-resistant storage compartment, the manuals that are in it. That would be the equipment manufacturer's manual and the ANSI manual of responsibilities. Okay, and it says here at C, decide on a topic and ask the operator to locate related safety information from within the manufacturer's manual. So I might pull the manual and say, show me where it tells you about the emergency lowering procedure in that manual. That's a good one for them to know. And I want to know that they can actually use that manual to reference it and find what they need. Very important. It's one thing to know where it is. It's another thing to know how to use it. It may sound, you know, ridiculous, but hey, there's some people that'll pick up that thing and not have a clue of, you know, where to go in it. There's a table of contents. It's usually laid out pretty, you know, obviously, I guess I'll say, but it's not obvious to everyone. You just want to err on the side of caution there, make sure they know how to do that. Okay, D says ask the operator to locate the operator's responsibilities within the ANSI A92 manual responsibilities. That will be section 8 of that document. Those of you that went through general training will know that. Remember the part 6 is for the owner, 7 is the user, and 8 is the operator. And you're dealing with the operator, so you go right to part 8. Make sure they know that's there. Point to a random function control device at the base and platform control panels and ask the operator to explain what they do. So right here at the control panel, any one of these things, I like to see if they can locate the auxiliary power or the auxiliary control switch. Again, that's more of an emergency type device, but it could be any one of these things. This particular model has the drive enable function, right? Those of you that are familiar with this brand will know that, but it could be any one thing, and you're just, again, trying to find out, give the operator something to do and see if they can figure it out. Okay, and H says ask the operator to show you where the unit safety devices are located and demonstrate their safe use. Now again, on this unit, that'll be a very simple process, but it could be more involved on more complicated units. Okay, so again, it just depends on what kind of machine you're working with, make and model, and previous experience of the operator. Okay, check the box on line 7 of the checklist indicating whether the operator has successfully demonstrated familiarization with the area lift. So remember, inside this document here, that's our, just get rid of that for now. That's box 7 is right here. The operator user has demonstrated knowledge and understanding of the items listed above and is considered familiarized with the aerial lift specified above. Check, right? There you go. Signature of the operator, and you can consider them familiarized at that point. Oops. Okay, now, finally it says to have them sign at J here. And now it says here, there's a note here, right, in the lesson plan at this point, at the end of step 6, 6.3. Demonstrations of the items listed in 6.3a through H, that's all these items here, may be omitted if the operator, or I'm sorry, if the user / operator can show that they are not applicable at the workplace, or, you know, with the machine. So again, just like any kind of training checklist, whenever, like, let's say, just draw something, maybe something that has to do with battery charging. Well, if you're using an engine-powered unit, there is no battery charging, so it's not something you're going to spend any time on. Things like that, just things that just aren't relative to your specific situation. Step 7, wrap up. Okay, 7.1. Once you are satisfied that the operator has the required knowledge and skill to demonstrate familiarization with the area lift being used, ask if there are any final questions before moving on. And then finally, last page here, page 6 of the lesson plan, step 8, documentation. Okay, 8.1, complete the required documentation as followed. So that would be the record card, which is, remember, that's the little certificate that's in here, the wallet card. The fare card, actually, familiarization record card, issue it to the operator. Enter the appropriate information on your area lifts operator familiarization training log. Right, we kind of pulled that out earlier and pointed to that. That's downloadable from our site, the IVE site. Make a copy of the familiarization checklist for your records and submit the original to the employer or employer representative of the operator. So that's going to be basically this folder, this entire folder with this checklist completed. That will you have given to the operator, but that's completed and signed. That's going to go to the employer. And as a matter of fact, file the sign-in roster with the rest of the documents you retain. and that's the other document we showed you earlier in the package. The sign-in roster was something that is you just tuck inside this folder, and that will show the employer that yes, these are the people that came to the program, to the familiarization program, and they were successful. Right? They're going to need that information on record, in writing, as you know how important documentation is. So hopefully that helps you, navigate that lesson plan. But like I said, there's a lot of references to that trainee guide, right? Which is the handout you give to your operators that you're going to walk them through. So let's take a look at that now. All right, let's go through the operator training guide that comes in the packet inside the folder. So that's the handout right here. I believe down at the bottom you'll see SUP 203 and in brackets GEN for generic. Okay, let's walk through this. So now this is something you'll give to each of your operators and walk them through it. You'll see it, the very first thing it says there at the top, notice. Familiarization training is designed to upgrade the general training and knowledge of a previously qualified aerial lift operator. If you have not already received general training in the safe use and operation of the aerial lift you are being familiarized with, please notify your trainer, employer, or supervisor immediately. Familiarization training alone will not qualify you as an aerial lift operator. Now this would be the operator reading this, so that's just to let them know, like, hey, wait a minute, I don't have this general training that they're talking about. Well, then something's wrong. Right? You're supposed to be previously trained and qualified, and then you're just getting kind of upgraded to this different machine you're about to operate. Okay, so this handout, this whole program is designed for use with self-propelled elevating work platforms. That would be a scissor lift. Boom-supported elevating work platforms. That would be this unit right here, an aerial boom lift. And then you manually propelled elevating work platforms, which are the push-around units. They're commonly referred to as. Okay, let's open up here onto page number 2 actually. It says A, background. Now remember, this is for the operator's information. Current ANSI and CSA standards require operators to receive general training on aerial lifts, as well as make model specific training on the unit or units they are assigned to operate, commonly referred to as familiarization. That's why you're here. Since these standards are referenced by most regulatory agencies and manufacturers in North America, compliance with them is strongly recommended. B, what types of operator training are required before operating? There are 2 kinds of training that an aerial lift operator must complete before operating an aerial lift: general training and familiarization training. Section C, general training. Now these are things out of the ANSI standard that would comprise the general training they should have had before being in this familiarization program. So general training is designed to cover almost everything to do with aerial lifts, from how they work to how to keep them stable and upright to how to inspect them and use them safely. Okay, let's go over the page in our handout here. Page 3, D, familiarization training. So we just covered general training, now familiarization training. Familiarization training is a very specific to the type of aerial lift you are assigned to operate at your workplace and is given in addition to general training. This training is given to make sure you are aware of and understand how to deal with any significant differences between the type of equipment you received general training on and those you are assigned to operate at the work site. You must receive familiarization training each and every time you are assigned to operate an aerial lift you are unfamiliar with, and before operating it, possibly becoming a hazard to yourself or your coworkers. Now again, I'll reiterate that the familiarization required, say if you're going from 2 machines that are basically very similar, will not be very much at all. I mean, it could be something as simple as where a certain button or switch is located. It does the same thing, just happens to be here instead of there, like on the unit you're trained on. But it could be much more involved than that, in which case training is probably going to be required. Like I say, if you get onto one with, very complicated, say emergency lowering controls, which some of them have, manual lowering controls, that takes some doing, right, to show someone how it works and then to get them to demonstrate they know how to use it properly. Okay, so still under the heading D, familiarization training. After familiarization training, you should know, okay, where the weather-resistant compartment for the storage of manuals is, and almost invariably it's in the platform. Part 2, you should know that the specific that the specific unit manufacturer's operating manual, as well as the appropriate ANSI SIA A92 Manual of Responsibilities, again, where that's applicable, all right, not necessarily everywhere, but most places. So where that manual of responsibilities must be in the weather-resistant compartment, and that you must be familiar with their contents. So in that compartment up in the platform, you're going to find the unit-specific manufacturer's operating manual, and you're going to find the appropriate ANSI SIA manual responsibilities in that compartment. And step 3 here, the location and use of all control functions that cause movement of the equipment or any of its parts. Now again, since this is familiarization, you're going to really want to focus on those systems, parts that are different, that the operator is not familiar with already. And hopefully you found that out during the introductory phase of this program. All right, continuing on, page 4, step 4, or item 4, under D, familiarization training, the location and function of all safety devices specific to the model of aerial lift being used. And there you can see images in this handout of the tilt sensor, right, the function enable pedal, the auxiliary power switch, right, the lockout switch and freewheel mechanism for a scissor lift, stabilizers, manual lowering switch, things like that, that if they're not familiar with, they need to become familiar with. All right, or I should say you, because I'm speaking to you as though you're an operator reading this now. So, item 5, the loading and unloading procedures of the safe use of tilt-back features where applicable, or when applicable, on manually propelled units, which is really not what we're dealing with here, but those are, again, detailed, those tilt-back procedures in the manual for those pieces of equipment. And it's usually just so you can get them leaning back to get them through a doorway or, you know, through some tight space. Okay, step C, knowledge demonstration. You can appreciate how important that is. That's like practical demonstration. All right, this is the last step in your familiarization training program for you, the operator. Your trainer will now ask you to answer questions and perform tasks designed to demonstrate your familiarity with the specific aerial lift or lifts you will operate. Okay, so this is you, your trainer asking you, hey, look, go and operate these, and locate and operate these controls that, before this you weren't familiar with, just to show me that you are familiar with where they are and how they work. And then finally, F, documentation. While you complete step E and above, right, that's going through these items and using the controls, your trainer will fill out a checklist that documents your ability to demonstrate familiarization with the aerial lift being used. Afterwards, he or she will review this document with you and ask you to initial and sign the document in several places. Once completed and signed by you and your trainer, this document forms part of your personal training record and is filed with your employer. A familiarization record card, or FAIR card, is also signed by you and your trainer. Carry this card with you as proof that you have received the required familiarization training on the aerial lift listed on it. Please be aware that by signing the required documentation, you are stating that you understand all the information given to you during this familiarization program. Okay, so that is the handout that we give to the operators to walk them through, just to make sure that they're clear on everything, that you've covered everything. It's referred to in your lesson plan, but again, it's just to give the operators some background information, and then of course let them know what's expected of them, which is vital, of course.